name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. When Jesus shone like the sun before them, you may be seated. When Jesus shone like the sun, his face, his whole being shone like the sun. This vision that they saw, where he was there in a normal state, along with Moses in his normal state, and Elijah in his normal state. Those apostles got a glimpse of a reality that was beyond their comprehension. They were shown that so that they might comprehend what lies in store for them. It was showing them something different, and yet something that had already been shown. We've talked for the last 2-3 weeks about how the Lord called Moses, Aaron, Abihu, and 70 elders, and he told them to gather 70 elders and to erect 12 pillars. Because Moses had come down from the mountain where he saw God and was presented the tablets of the law. They gathered that together, they erected the 12 pillars, and they had the bulls, and they slaughtered the bulls, and they sprinkled the blood on the pillars after the law had been read to them, and they agreed, you are our God, we are your people, whatever you say we shall do, we shall do. And the Lord said, I am your God, and you are my people, and I shall not abandon you, and I shall make this covenant with you forever. And they made a covenant with God. And then Moses and Aaron and Ahab and Moses, Aaron, Ahab, and Abihu, and the 70 elders went up the mountain, and they saw God. And they knew him by his clearness. And here, James and John and Peter were with Jesus, and he took them up the mountain, and they saw God. They were of the 12. And the 70 had already gone out and came back, preaching and teaching that the kingdom of God was at hand, healing the sick, and casting out unclean spirits. This transfiguration is a revelation to us, because the story is told that the transfiguration is a revelation to us as to what awaits us. St. Paul talks about when he lets go of this skin, this tent that he calls himself, his body. When he lets go of that and no longer needs it anymore, he will be transfigured and is a light being. A light being. We are as the little caterpillars who are grown as little larvae and mature into those creatures that can go around and forage for food, fighting the nature, fighting off the birds, fighting off the winds, fighting off the drought, fighting off all of the different things, the adversity that happens in our life. And eventually something happens within them where they must create for them a space for themselves. A space for just themselves. They weave a cocoon and they go into it and they become a transforming being. The second stage of their life, well, it's actually a third. There's larvae, and then there's the caterpillar, and then there's the state of the chrysalis, where they're in a state of flux, or in a state of transition, in a state of change, where everything that was before has no meaning for them, and everything that is yet to come is still a mystery. This state of change is the state in which we are in now. State of change. You are not as you used to be. You are not as you are yet to be. You are as you are now, in a state of change and great flux. It is a state of mind and matter, but it is a different state. You no longer fit in with those old friends. You no longer fit in with those old haunts. You no longer find yourself fitting in with those old ways that you used to do that makes no sense to you now. At the time, it was all you could do to survive. But now you're in a state of change. And at some point, the little chrysalis is ready to emerge. And yet another fight begins. A fight to get out of its own cocoon. What was woven for its protection while it went into this hibernation and state of sleep and state of meditation, state of change, now becomes its prison. And you must fight to get out of it. Otherwise you stay in there and die. And you think that it's so easy for them? Oh no, it's a fight of their lives. They must fight to get out of that cocoon. They must try to get out of it, beat their way out of it. It is a fight, I tell you, in which the consequences could be death. It's a fight for your life. And you must have your eye on the prize. You must have your eye completely focused. As Christians, we have our mind and our heart and our being, our entire being, focused on the resurrection of Christ. He shows us the transfiguration as a prophecy for you, yet to be fulfilled in each and every one of you and me. It is a prophecy. Jesus is the fulfillment of the prophets. There he was with Elijah. Face shining. There he was with Moses, as his face had shown. He had to cover his face with a veil. You remember? Moses had to cover his face with a veil when anybody entered into the Ark of the Covenant, into the tent. He had to cover it because his face shone bright as the sun. Moses was transfigured on the mountain when he received the law. And he had to put on a tent, so to speak, in order to go back down the mountain and converse with the people. His state of transformation had left him in a state where people could follow him through the desert. He was their spiritual guide. But then it came time for them to enter into the promised land. And they needed army. They needed a warrior. They needed someone who could fight. And Moses was not that man. And so they went up to Mount Ekbo. I've been there. And you can look out and look on the whole Holy Land. You see the River Jordan, you can see on the other side all of Israel. everything as far you can see as far as Lebanon. And that's where he breathed his last. That's where he was taken. And he, Moses, has a grave there. I said, well, show me Moses' grave. We don't know where it is. We know it's here somewhere. Okay. When there's a church there, and they say that this is probably the spot where he died. Okay. Like the little chrysalis fighting its way out of the cocoon, it is a fight for us, a struggle for us. Christianity is not easy. It is a difficult religion to live by. It is such a challenge for us to do the works of righteousness and to become ourselves righteous. It is difficult to resist temptation. It is difficult to resist the natural inclination for anger, vengeance, retribution, to lunge out, to kill, to steal, to have fear, to have projection of fear, to project jealousy and greed, avarice, ambition. These things that suffocate us like the little butterfly trying to get out. If you watch how you can go to the Franklin Park Conservatory and they have a butterfly exhibit. And you can go there at a certain time of the year, they'll tell you, and you see the butterflies coming out of the cocoon. If you've ever actually seen it, all they need is one little hole, one little gap, one little break in that cocoon, and then that's where they go through. And they come through that thing and they emerge on the other side, and they are strong. They're exhausted. They're strong, and they sit there in the sunlight. They open their wings and they dry out. One moment they're sitting there, the next minute they're flying. They're taken stock of their surroundings, they feel the air, they see the sun, and they fly. And this is as it is for us. For us, all it takes is one little way out of the prison that we call this earth. One little way out of the prison that we call evil, satanic, mind control, satanic, cult-ridden, slavery, oppression. It's one little way out. Jesus was the way out. When you can have faith in him and hear his voice and have it actualize itself in you to change, when you change from a being of carnal to a being of spiritual, to a being of, from being of flesh to a being of light, to a state of existence that is without our body, we vibrated a different vibration, different frequency. We actually don't need this anymore. We can go out of it and return to it because we're in a state of transition. You can go out of body. Any person with a normal prayer life is going out of their body. It is a way to go into, what do you say, as I'm dreaming, or I'm having a state of prophecy or a state of mind that is something different than what it used to be. I am enlightened, becoming enlightened. The gifts of the Holy Spirit they are make their home in you. You foster that. You educate them. And you become exercising that. Those gifts of realization, those gifts of intelligence, those gifts of wisdom, those gifts of compassion, those gifts of humility, and the gifts that are of our virtues, which are the attributes of God, which we actualize in ourselves. While we're in this present state, where we're half in and half out, we have received the sacraments of baptism, communion, chrismation. You've received the sacrament of purification. You've received the sacrament of marriage. You received the sacrament of orders. You received the sacraments of states of life. These are energies which are filling you, transforming you into a different existence. The transfiguration of Jesus is a prophecy to be fulfilled in you. And as I say, there are many of the caterpillars, using the analogy of caterpillars, who don't make it to the chrysalis. They're eaten by the birds. They're blown by the wind. They're affected by the drought. They're affected by other predators. They fall or lose their way. They give up. They don't make it. There are those that are just simply lost. But it's not for lack of our praying for them. It's not for lack of our compassion for them. It's not for lack of our desiring that they would come in the door. We go out to them. Come, see, learn. There's a way out of this. But they hold fast to their stubborn old ways. And they refuse to see. And they are hell-bent on death. Because they cannot get beyond this here, this now, and the things that have happened to them that should have put a pathway out of the old. But no, they say, oh, I'm getting beat up. I'm going to go back and get beat up again. Oh, I'm addicted. I'm going to go back and get high again. I'm going to go be around negative people. I'm going to go be around people who are destructive to themselves and me. I'm going to be around things that I can feel myself spiraling down. And, oh, let's have a party on the way down. Okay, let's go have a good time. And down they go. And they find themselves out here for years and years and years and years. Waking up on a snowbank. Anyway, when we come into I'll give you another example about how metal is hardened. Steel starts out as iron ore. Iron ore is dug out of the ground. It's a rock. It has other impurities in it. It's not just all iron. It's iron oxide. And it is. It took them a long time to figure out how to get it out of the rock. It took a few centuries for mankind to be able to figure out how to get that iron that's in there out of the rock. Until they were able to get a fire hot enough. They realized that ordinary fire wasn't hot enough to do it. They had to have a hot fire, a real hot fire, a forge, so they could heat that rock up to where it was liquefied. and the sludge, the slurry would rise to the top, and they would pour that off and throw it away. And what was left was the pure iron. They figured out that they could cool that off, they could hammer that out, and they could make it into something like a tool. It could be a knife. It could be used for hunting. It could be used for hammering. It could be used for all kinds of things. Shoveling. All kinds of tools can be made from iron. Where before they were just made from the rocks. They realized that that melted iron, then hardened into a thing, was brittle. What meant by that is if you hit a rock with it, it would break. It was iron, ore made in the form of a hammer. But if you hit it on a rock or something hard, it would break. It was brittle. They figured out that there was a way to harden that iron by taking it when it was hot and cooling it off real fast in a bucket of water. They put stress on it, and it became hard, and they could beat it. They would heat it again, and beat it again, and quench it again, and beat it again, and heat it again, and quench it again, until it became hardened steel. Then they figured out that it was the carbon that was in the heating of it. When they put it back in the fire, the carbon went into the iron and made it carbon steel. It bonded with the carbon that was in the fluid. It was no longer iron, it was no longer carbon, but it was carbon steel. And they became very hard. Now they figured out they could do it with other elements as well, like nickel, lead, copper. They could make these things and blend them together, along with the carbon. And they could figure out a way to make these tools so that they had improved and better properties by combining them, not being just themselves purified. People have asked me, why, oh God, why, Father, they ask me, why must we suffer? Why must we suffer? I've had my baptism. I've had my communion. I've had my chrismation. I've had my holy orders. I've had my marriage vows. How come I must suffer? And it is like this. We must be put back into the fire. We must be put into the transition water. We must do it again and again and again until we become hardened, until we become an amalgam, something that is able to withstand the pressures. We're not going to break the first time we come up against something harder than ourselves. We must become, as a metallurgical property, it's called toughness. And that toughness is where it's not going to just break, but it will withstand. It will give a little bit, push back. The transfiguration of our Lord Jesus Christ is a reminder of our whole path of salvation. It's a reminder of our whole path of transmutation. When we go from one state of being to another and yet another and yet another, we ascend in stages into our glorified self. Christianity talks about this all the time. We pray for our daily prayers. We could get into our daily prayers. You could see how rich it is with all of these subtleties of transition. Subtleties of transition. Because as you can see, we're not always maintaining ourselves in a brand new state. We just have to go back and deal with some other stuff and clean up, and we come forward again. And it's again. And it's out. And it's in. And it's out. And it's in until we transform again. And then we begin again to then reach a new level. It's out and it's in. It's back and it's forth. And it's an ascension that's based in movement. We exercise our mind, our spirit, our souls, and our bodies. We exercise ourselves until we can become different people than the way we were. And any recovering alcoholic or drug addict can tell you that it's a stage of, it's a process. It just doesn't happen. Oh, I went into a program and 30 days later, look at me. I'm clean. Yeah, right. It's a whole thing. It's the emotion. It's the attachments. It's going back into the psychological that started it in the first place. Having to deal and solve the problems that existed there. Having to deal with the shame and guilt issues. Having to deal with your family issue and the grief and the guilt and all that. Go through all these things and heal them. Hey, that's not easy. But each time we keep at that, each time we make a little progress, if we're transforming, we're exercising, like expanding ourselves into that which we desire. Now, this can be done by our own pushing. It can be done by the Lord's pulling. It can be done because we have reached a threshold where change must happen. We're stuck until we get to the next stage, and we just keep fighting between ourselves against the brick wall. Keep getting our head. It seems like nothing happens. And it seems like we're numb to it. Like nothing is happening, like we're just a walking sea slowly. And nothing is happening. And then at some point, when we're ready, or we think we're ready, when we are ready, another great awareness exercise happens and another transition happens. And we can hear it as if it's a sound or if it's a new light, something that comes in and rejuvenates ourselves, wakes us up, and we're able to transcend and go yet again into another state. We find that there's no end to it. We can't even remember how it used to be for us. It's as if we're inhabiting a new world. It's as if we're inhabiting a new mind. It's as if we are completely different. We're able to see like we have never seen before. From a different point of view. We see it all. None of this has to do with time. None of this has to do with space. None of this has to do with quantum physics. None of it has to do with cause and effect. It has to do with a spiritual existence that is already within us that we call the kingdom of God, which is at hand. It is beyond time and space. It's beyond mathematics. It's beyond quantum. It's beyond that. It is an existence of which you could say it's godlike because it's benevolent. You could say it is a state of existence that is divine because it is filled with compassion for others. It is as if you don't have any enemies anymore because they've dissolved away. All you see is their light. How can you hate that light which is your own light? How can you hate? can't hate those. You have no enemies that you have not already conquered through this love, this light, this ascension, this grace, this state of being. At some point, realize that you can behold all of the material world as there. And all of the spiritual world is here and there. And all of the God as always here and there. And it all comes together as one ascended mind. What you're hearing is a prophecy yet to be fulfilled in each of you. This is a prophecy that comes from the mind of God, the mouth of God himself, who says, "This is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased." A light-filled cloud descends on you for the benefit of other people, so that they can hear the voice that says, "This is my beloved Son. This is the one whom I have graced. This is the one whom you should follow and become like him, because he is you. He is the firstborn of all of you. He is a human being and yet a God. He is the beginning and yet the end. He is the fire and yet the ice. He is all of it. As you can ascend to do all of it also, and to be with him at his right and in his left, and all of that. Sitting on the judgment thrones and all that. So this is our destiny. This is our religion. This is Christianity. It is beyond the here and the now and the rules of what not to do and what to do and who to, those things are the baby food. That which I've just described to you is the ultimate destiny for you. And the reason for which you were born into this existence and consciousness in this mind right now, so that you can hear this now for yourself. So that this is known, that you can conquer any obstacle through faith. Faith is an energy. Faith is a grace. Faith is a state of existence. It is something that you can utilize as a tool. And it must be hardened by suffering and strength. Suffering and strength. Suffering and strength. I know people whose faith has been so tested because someone they love so much was killed, or robbed, or gone, suffered, dead, died. I know it. And yet their faith is more solid now than before it had ever happened. Because they believe in Christ Jesus and his mercy. I believe even though it hurts so much. I believe in you. And in this, our whole being becomes a hardened carbon fiber, capable of transmitting great amounts of data and not just being used to hack at things. This is a beautiful story, because if you are aware about transition states, then you can be aware that there is no such thing as death. Jesus has conquered death by his own death. That's what we say. We believe that. And because he has conquered death by his own death, there is no such thing. There's just a different state of where we happen to be in our progression. Some have gone before us. Some will come after us. But we are all one connected human race. One connected sonship of God. And this is how it is. I hope you've come to a new understanding of the possibilities that are open for you. And that by dedicating yourself and your mind to a new purpose, a noble one, that you can leave the old behind. It no longer has any definition in your life. It's just a memory that other people may not be able to let go of, but you have. But you are. Each and every one of us is in a state of transfiguration. Sometimes pushing, sometimes being pulled. And if we can accept this, that we're on this ride and this is our destiny, we say, well, I'm tired of fighting this. In your hands I commend my spirit, thy will be done. And allow the one little opening so we can go through and emerge on the other side of different views. Without fear. Christianity is so beautiful in this that it is an explanation that even we can understand with our limitations of language and our limitations of sense and our limitations of pressure and destiny and all those sort of things that come into play. It's not a philosophy, it is a path of discovery.